It's a new day on Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us on Wednesday morning's edition. For the next 2 hours, as always, we bring you the biggest conversations happening here in Nigeria. And remember that you can join the conversation simply by tweeting or sending your messages on our social media platforms at News Central TV or calling the phone lines when those numbers are on your screens. I am Osaogie Ogbon.
And I am Olive Emodi, thanking you once again for being a part of the show. We hope that on your way to work, you find some way to deal with the current reality, that is fuel scarcity, that seems to have become our current reality, and Nigerians seems to have moved on. No explanations, no accountability. The NNPC has given its explanation, but it's not just about the explanation. Is there any consequence for the fact that Nigerians have to bear the brunt of filling stations not having product for weeks now? But then again, like I said on X, we have become the understanding girlfriends. But I'd like us to move away from that conversation and talk about one that's really, really heart-wrenching, of a young man who unfortunately spent 10 months in detention because of a text message he sent to his boss resigning. And this is the story that we have a tweet. We're going to share the tweet. The tweet is by the executive director of Hope Behind Bars. So if our producers may please share the tweet so that we can take what the details are of a young man who spent 10 months in prison for having just sent a text to his boss on via social media. Okay, so the executive director of Hope Behind Bars had put up the tweet, and I'm going to read what the tweet says. It says, "This is Nicholas, a 26-year-old graduate photographer and keyboardist. Sometime in October 2023, Nicholas sent a text message to his boss resigning his role as a photographer in the photo studio. His boss was angry at the content of the text message and got him arrested. From spending 2 days in police detention, he ended up being charged for intentional insult. Locked up and in a room with 189 other cellmates at a prison in Kefi because he could not afford the bail sum, initially 100,000 naira and later 50,000 naira. He remained there even after the said boss, a politician in the current administration and owner of a popular photography studio in FCT, wrote a letter to the court withdrawing the charge. 2 weeks ago, someone hinted the Hope Behind Bars Association about Nicholas' plight, and he was reached out to a friend, donated 50,000 naira anonymously. Now, we'll go back to the first picture that we projected. That first picture is a picture of Nicholas 2 months ago before he was taken to prison. The second picture is a picture of him when he got out last week. And then the third picture is a picture of him yesterday with the executive director of Hope Behind Bars, Funke Adeoye. So first of all, thank you to Funke Adeoye and her team for the great work that they're doing, helping to highlight situations of injustice like this. And I don't know, I felt a lot of emotions when I saw this story. It's one thing for us to complain about the current administration and its high-handedness, talking about bullying and intimidation and the mechanics or the tactics that the administration has employed in being able to silence Nigerians, talking about how democracy is not run as it should be run. And I mean, yesterday I talked about the president's speech at the Nigerian Bar Association, talking about how they are committed to the rule of law, separation of powers, and they will allow dissent within the bounds of the law. But whilst we are criticizing the president and criticizing the administration, we must be aware of our own inherent wickedness as individuals, as some of us as Nigerian citizens, and the flaw in our system. And first of all, you know, the president, there's another tweet that was calling out the owner of that photography studio where Nicholas worked and sent a text. And just the sheer thought that your staff can resign via text message, and I don't really care what the content of the text message was. First of all, I've never heard a charge such as intentional insult. I don't know what that even means. So the sheer knowledge that you can decide to arrest someone and throw them in prison because they sent a text resigning, whatever the case is, not only are you held, not only should you be held liable, but even the police, that is an instrument of setting the law in motion against Nigerian. You wonder, is the police really our friend? Is the police really on the side of the Nigerian citizen? So whilst we're complaining about our rule of law and the fact that our leaders are they're not subject to the rule of law and they do not practice democracy as it should be, we must be aware of our own inherent wickedness, our own flagrant disrespect of the law, and the role that the law enforcement plays in all of this.
I mean, it's heartbreaking. I did, mention yesterday that it feels like Nigerian security agencies almost understand their role to be to protect, the rich and to protect the, upper persons up in the upper echelon of power. They don't see their roles really as to serve and protect the average Nigerian. The amount of money and influence that you have, will determine how much influence that you have over security agencies, and that's why you find situations like this. So to a large extent, of course, the police is culpable, for this, but Nicholas is one of thousands, tens of thousands of Nigerians that have suffered similar fate. Hope Behind Bars and I think Headforth Foundation are two of them that I'm familiar with. We've had the Headforth Foundation join us on the show, at some point, to also tell a story about someone who they also, at that point recently, released from prison after he had been awaiting trial for many years. If you look at statistics, it shows that Nigeria has about 76 or 78,000 persons behind bars awaiting trial. A lot of these cases, are for very minor offenses that don't even, that you normally wouldn't even be charged to court, A lot of these cases are people, if you heard some of the stories from the Headforth Foundation and Hope Behind Bars, a lot of these cases are for people that maybe just, went to buy bread, or taking a stroll.
And
or
there's
where,
something that happened
exactly,
and then they picked everybody up there.
Exactly, in a raid. Police did a raid, packed everybody. You get to prison, you get to police station, you can't bail yourself, pull the charger, on you. And next thing you find yourself spending 15, 12, 10, 24 years. I saw a story of a guy who spent 24 years behind bars, for escorting his friend to the police station. I think I saw that. So this is, pretty, common in Nigeria, and it's very, very heartbreaking. And it also shows the rot in our criminal justice system. When we had the NBA conference, of course, we started yesterday. I said, yes, that these are some of the things that they must be speaking about. The rot in the whole criminal justice
because
system.
Even the lawyers are affected. There have been reports of lawyers. In fact, I was hearing when a lawyer was sharing with me 2 days ago of a lawyer who took their client to law enforcement and got detained.
I'm not, well, sorry to him. The point is the criminal justice system itself, has a lot of rot that needs to be cleaned if we're serious about having a more sane society. Nigerians don't live in a society where, that thing where they say, a lawyer represented for you if you can't afford legal representation. That's not the reality of the average Nigerian. There's someone like Nicholas doesn't find himself, in court and immediately have a lawyer presented for him to represent him in court. That doesn't happen. You're going to have to, be able to afford a lawyer. If you can't afford a lawyer, then sorry to you. So again, his case is one of, tens of thousands, that have happened in Nigeria. His life, of course, could have completely been ruined if not for, this foundation, the Hope Behind Bars Foundation that, of course, got him out of there. He could have been there for the next 10 years. He could have been there, and maybe even died over there. And this is a young man who has a whole life ahead of him. So everyone is culpable. But yes, I agree with what you started with at first, that there is some inherent type of wickedness that is in the average Nigerian. And that's, and you see these things in the way that they also abuse power. I've argued before to myself, mostly, that the same people who constantly demand for a better government cannot be the same people who run through random traffic lights, and break every possible law in Nigeria because, of course, they know that they can beat the system.
And what even upsets me in all of this is the realization that a number of the people who are the ones, quote unquote, demanding for a change, demanding for a better government, are the same ones who, if given the opportunity, will do worse than the administration that they are criticizing. So I think it's time for us to look within ourselves and check ourselves and hold one another accountable. This man, the owner of this photo studio is allegedly Oluwole Mike, the owner of Pesta Photo Studio in FCT and publisher of One Nigeria Television. And we're hoping that we can, come out to, he would be willing to grant an interview and share his own side of the story. But regardless of what the side of the story is, there's a process for handling criminal investigations. If you make a report to the police and the police decide to pick up the person, they should be charged to court no later than 48 hours. So you can't just throw them in jail indefinitely. And this, like you said, is the reality of many Nigerians. So once again, thank you to Hope Behind Bars, to Legal Aid, and all the lawyers who are constantly playing their part in helping to take up matters that, that have been wrongfully
to provide some
legal
level of
services,
legal
bona fide,
representation to many of those thousands and thousands of those who are behind bars, who have not been able to get proper legal representation and have their day in court. Again, 78,000, according to what the Google says, 78,000 persons are waiting trial in Nigerian prisons today. Heartbreaking.
Well, anyway, we'll talk about the individuals. We'll talk about the journalists. For example, there is still PDOM Nigeria, who is behind bars. We're not quite sure what exactly the situation is with him. Law enforcement has come out to speak about it, but that will be one of our conversations today. But let's share with you what our top stories are before we bring you breakfast headlines. President Tinubu appoints new NIA DSS boss. That was one of the conversations that made the headlines yesterday, and we'll talk about that today as well. Police arrest PDOM for quote-unquote leaking classified documents. Away from the arrest of PDOM, we'd also be looking at the federal government setting 18 years age limit for JAMB, WAEC and NECO exams. Parents have pushed back, saying they'll go to court. Resident doctors strike over abduction of colleague Dr. Ganiat Pukwola, who was abducted in December 2023. We reviewed the newspaper front pages and we opened the lines whilst doing so. Now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Now we begin breakfast headlines by telling you that President Bola Tinubu will hold bilateral talks with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit between September 6th and September 4th and 6th, 2024. President Tinubu will visit China to represent the West African bloc, ECOWAS, at the summit. The presidential spokesperson, Ajuri Ngalale, told State House correspondents on Tuesday that at the summit, President Tinubu will discuss regional peace and security. To health matters, the Lagos state government has announced that there are no active confirmed cases of monkeypox in the state. The state commissioner for health, Professor Akin Abayomi, who made the announcement while briefing journalists in Lagos state, said the state government is intensifying efforts towards public health sensitization to raise awareness and allay fears among residents. Also in the news, many independent oil marketers in Nigeria have increased the pump price of premium motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, to between 900 and 1,000 naira per litre. The sharp contrast to the prices at the Nigerian National Petroleum Company stations, where petrol sells between 568 and 617 naira per litre, often results in long queues at NNPC outlets. As Nigerians express concerns over the exorbitant rates by independent dealers, the federal government has promised to crack down on filling stations selling petrol at inflated prices. The National Emergency Management Authority, NEMA, says at least 49 people have been killed and thousands displaced due to severe flooding in northeast Nigeria following heavy rains. NEMA spokesperson Manzo Ezekiel confirmed that the states of Jigawa, Adamawa, and Taraba have been hardest hit, with 41,344 people displaced. Away from Nigeria, let's move to East Africa, where a senior Kenyan opposition leader, Raila Odinga, has announced his candidacy for the top post in the African Union. Speaking at an event, Odinga vowed to collaborate with the 55 member states of the African Union Commission to serve the interests of the vast, voiceless majority of Africans. The role, which will be filled in 2024, is reserved for a representative from East Africa, replacing Musa Faki Mahamat, a seasoned politician from Chad, who has served as chair of the pan-continental body since 2017. Now to other parts of the world, the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, has announced that he has reached an agreement to participate in a debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, scheduled for September 10th in Philadelphia on ABC News. This announcement follows a period of negotiations between the Trump and Harris campaigns, which had reached a stalemate over specific debate protocols, particularly regarding the muting of microphones when candidates are not speaking. And let's also tell you that former President of the United States, Donald Trump, has appointed Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard to his transition team shortly after they endorsed his campaign. Gabbard, who's a former congresswoman and 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, distanced herself from the party, while Kennedy initially sought a Democratic nomination before running as an independent and later supporting Trump. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. So now move back, of course, to Breakfast Central and bring you our top stories. I am Osaugi Ogbonwa.
As resident doctors in Nigeria continue their one-week strike action, seeking the safe return of their colleague, Dr. Ganiat Bola, who has spent several months in the den of kidnappers. Patients across the country are calling for a quick resolution of the issue, which has crippled activities across health facilities in the country. Some of them, while lamenting the absence of medical doctors in government hospitals, say they are unable to afford the cost of health services in private hospitals. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, reports.
The one-week industrial action by the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors demanding the release of Dr. Ganiat Bola, who was abducted about 8 months ago, has begun to take its toll on patients and medical facilities across the country.
It's a form of solidarity amongst, all the bodies, all the Association of Resident Doctor bodies nationwide, to tell them, the federal government, and to let them know that we want the immediate release of our colleague.
We have our monitoring teams going around to ensure full compliance. And I can tell you that day 2 of the strike, there's full compliance here in Federal Medical Center, Asaba.
While the association and its affiliate members have described their action as necessary, a visit to several health facilities highlights the challenges patients are now facing. At the Federal Medical Center in the nation's capital, Abuja, the turnout of patients was low as a result of the situation. The same was witnessed in Delta State as patients did not gain access to doctors for treatment.
Not be the way when people they come before, then they. If you look around now, then they counting.
I never see doctor, they never attend to me.
So even drugs that my normal routine drugs, out of all, they only gave me one and asked me to go and buy the rest for.
However, in Abia State, it was a total different scenario as patients were seen hanging around hospitals hoping to be attended by a medical doctor.
Today, we're supposed to come for checkup, they dress the wound, but up to now, they have not come. It's not their way, because by this time, they would have been here to attend to us.
Some members of the association empathized with patients on the challenge being posed by the situation.
We feel for the masses, we understand, but this is it's a very big picture. You have to look at the big picture. If doctors keep on working and then we get abducted every now and then, for one who has been abducted, you don't know what the person's fate is, you don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Although the demand of the striking resident doctors is the safe release of Dr. Ganiat Bola, many patients are hoping that this saga will end as quick as possible. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Thank you very much, Idong Joseph, for that report. And this is something that Nigerian citizens across the country are feeling. I spoke with someone yesterday who is in the Ile-Ife Teaching Hospital, whose brother was scheduled to go on a surgery, but unfortunately, this one cannot be attended to because of the strike. And we're hoping that by virtue of this, we can have the federal government do something that they need to do as quickly as possible. They have the resources. According to, the doctors have said that the government have the resources. You can't allow this woman wallow in, allow her family suffer this much. Since December, this is August, and everyone just seems to have moved on.
Yeah, I understand the idea of doctors fighting for their own, which is, of course, is annoying. But I don't know if, I don't know if we are also failing, to remind the Nigerian government that, it must bring, this person's Nigerian back home. Because if we make it, occupation by occupation, when a teacher is, kidnapped, does that so then go on strike? If the lecturer doesn't come back home? If a banker is kidnapped,
well,
the banks also decide to
the
down
NLC
tools.
had threatened that if their president or their chairman was arrested and detained by law enforcement agents that they were going to go on strike.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's that, but that's different from kidnapping. My point is now patients across the the country, in many parts of the country, now having to suffer because of the inaction of government here. It's now become a NMA situation under the federal government, but
because they have written multiple letters, official letters, over and over again to the government, and the government is not listening. And I can understand the frustration of patients, because I personally know somebody who is suffering as a result of this. Was scheduled to have a heart surgery on Wednesday, but unfortunately, because because of the situation, they can't have the surgery.
I agree with them. I'm just stating, a little bit of discomfort that I feel with the whole story. And like I've said it before, that unfortunately we don't live in a system where people truly are held to account.
Because somebody should be fired as a result of this. There will be people that will die during the 7-day strike.
No, not even on that aspect. Now I'm talking now about who's meant to be responsible for responding to kidnap cases.
Well, NIA, DSS, would it make any sense that their heads have been changed?
So if for any reason, a person spends this long, who has failed that person? Is it the police? Is it the DSS? Is it the NIA? Is it maybe definitely not the army? But who has failed, this person? And whose responsibility should it be? Who do we hold and say, okay, you've allowed a kidnapped victim stay in captivity for 8 months. It means that you failed and you should resign.
Right.
I mean, we just don't, our conversations are not just rich enough like that when we talk about these things in Nigeria. It's the same thing, and I'm talking right from the Chibok to, those major kidnappings. It is as a result of your failure to do your job, that this situation has happened, that these persons have been kidnapped, that this person was kidnapped and stayed this long in captivity, without being rescued. They eventually had to pay a ransom. It's a result of your failure that the Emir of Gobert was killed. Those things don't even come up in any conversation. What we have is, sad, pathetic situations like this, and everybody just moves on.
Right.
Like, it's just another day in Nigeria. And if for any reason this doctor is, I hope that this doctor is rescued.
I really do hope
the police then wants you to praise them. They then post it and, make it seem like you should celebrate the police for the rescue.
And we don't have to get to the point where we're holding the government to ransom before they can do what they need to do or what they should do.
Exactly.
So,
and the reason that we get there is because nobody understands that, or nobody fears that, okay, people are going to question why I haven't been able to rescue this person in a 1-month period or in a 3-week period, a 6-month period. There's nothing. Nobody's at the risk of losing their jobs or being suspended or being fired for not being able to carry out their jobs effectively, especially when it comes to actual human life.
Right. I mean, the two sides will be, we're hoping that the government does what it needs to do, and Dr. Ganiat Popola is brought out of the rescued, whatever that means, from the kidnappers within the next 7 days. But either way, it is still not a feather to the government's cap, because she should not have been kidnapped in the first place. And even if she was kidnapped, she should not have stayed this long with the kidnappers. But we're moving away the conversation from Dr. Ganiat Popola, and we'll still be talking about it over the course of the week whilst the strike goes on. Peter Obi, the Labour Party's presidential candidate, has condemned the Nigerian authorities' harassment of journalists, citing the recent disappearance of the detention of whistleblower PDOM Nigeria. Obi warned that Nigeria risks becoming a banana republic where journalists are silenced or disappear for doing their job. He called for the Freedom of Information Bill to be passed and emphasized the importance of press freedom in holding those in power accountable.
Peter Obi's statement comes after PDOM Nigeria was reportedly arrested for allegedly leaking classified documents and cyber-related offenses. Pro-democracy activist Omoyele Sowore also demanded PDOM's immediate release, fearing harm if not secured. The incident is part of a larger trend of government agents suppressing information and harassing investigative journalists in Nigeria. Joining us is human rights lawyer Mujirayo Ogunlano. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. Let's first of all get your broad view on the current situation with regards to PDOM Nigeria, amongst, of course, many other cases that have occurred in the last long while.
Okay, so I think if you're talking about journalists, one of the persistent things I've been, or the persistent statements I've been making is that it seems that in this generation, the lives of journalists are at risk. It seems that journalism is becoming how do you put this, a precarious profession that is likely to go into extinction. And the reason is simple. You have a democratic country or a democratic society in paper or in the books, but in actual fact, we see situation where it's hard for journalists who are the, how do I put them, the fourth estate of the realm, and who have been charged, should I say charged, and have the responsibility, clearly written by the Constitution for them to hold government accountable on behalf of the public, because it says in the public interest, hold government accountable. That is what journalism is all about. Unfortunately, we see situations where journalists are harassed and intimidated. One of such journalists in Abuja was covering the End Bad Governance protest, and he was harassed and was even detained, his phone collected, his camera destroyed in the process. And this is consistent with what we have seen for, how do I put it, since the APC government. Maybe that's how I'm going to put it, because I'm saying from the period of Buhari now till now, it has been a consistent thing that we have been seeing, that there is a target or a deliberate attempt to shut out journalism or the media from Nigeria. And this is very, very sad. And then we have seen also, and I think I mentioned this the last time, I'm not sure, where Daniel Ojukwu was kidnapped, practically. If not that we were able to get the information that Daniel Ojukwu was abducted from his location, then it would have been one of those missing persons that you will now start looking for him, like the way we did look for Jones Abiri in 2016, and then they brought him 2 years and 6 months to the courts. So we have seen this situation when we do not shine light on the problems. You would just find out that that particular human being, that particular journalist, just how do I put it, just gets missing or is absent from circulation, and that is what we have seen so far. And that is
why do you think that is?
About the case.
Yeah, and you pointed out
we have a state of impunity in Nigeria. Every arm of government is practically, should I say, under siege by a few. Now, for instance, we saw a report that came out that the judiciary is the most corrupt institution or the arm of government, and that is very sad. It is sad because ordinarily the judiciary should be able to check the excesses of the executive and the legislative. And it is simple. When we get judgment, for instance, in court, you will find out that, especially when it is against government institution, you find out that you cannot even enforce those judgments. And I have several cases like that, whereby the judgments are cast aside. For a client, I have been writing the Federal Ministry of Justice, writing the Office of the Attorney General for 2 good years now, and there has never been any response. Not one letter to say we have even received your letter for the enforcement of the judgment of those courts. Nothing. They just, it is consistent. So you have the position of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, and you see that the intricacies of what it means to do justice, it seems that it is lacking in that particular parasite or the particular institution. Otherwise, why is it? So I'm looking at it, I'm linking it, that failure now emboldens the law enforcement or emboldens the executive to keep violating the rights of Nigerians, because really they know that there is no one that is going to hold them responsible.
Now that you've mentioned the judiciary, let's talk about law for a bit. The NBA conference has been going on. I reckon that yesterday was on bad. I hope that you've been attending the conference. But away from that, the president...
attended the conference.
Sorry?
Thank you.
You didn't attend?
No, I'm here. I'm attending the conference,
okay,
actually.
Brilliant. The president, through the vice president, in his speech, said that he's assuring Nigerians that the current administration, that his administration, that's the president, Bola Tinubu's administration, will continue to promote the rule of law, separation of powers, and dissent within the bounds of law. With what you've seen so far about President Bola Tinubu's administration so far, you've talked about journalists and how the media as a fourth estate of the realm is being targeted. Would you say that you believe these promises, these statements made on the stage and on the platform of the Nigerian Bar Association, and how should lawyers, be able to hold the government to account in this situation if you don't believe them?
Okay, so it's going to be very hard for me to believe when politicians speak. Why? Because it's a different thing if you're saying something, and it's a different thing when you are acting out something contrary to what you've said. So this case in question, this P-Dom arrest, for instance, is antithetical to the tenets of democracy. And unfortunately, we have a system of law or criminal justice system that has also, allowed that. And I think lawyers, we need to start talking about the Administration of Criminal Justice Act that is allowing the police to apply or obtain remand orders that for 56 days. If you look at 14 days, if you compile the 14, it comes to 56 days. We need to change that aspect of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, if it is possible, because we need to align with the Constitution in Section 35, which says that it is either you detain someone for 24 hours or 48 hours, depending on the kilometers of reaching an available court. Now, if we stick by what the Constitution is saying, you would not find the audacity of the police detaining an alleged offender, for instance. That is somebody who the Constitution regards as innocent, not proven guilty. And then you keep the person for 56 days, and there is no reparation. There is no compensation for the time that you're being kept in detention. Two, they go to get remand orders pending investigation. This is absolutely wrong. You are supposed to do your investigation, complete your investigation, then go after the culprits. That is the appropriate thing to do. Not that you detain someone or you give unreasonable bail conditions just because you want to keep the person frustrated. And it's unfortunate, that is happening to the media. So I think it is high time that we looked really critically at the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and in fact remove that option that gives the magistrate the right to grant remand orders. I'm talking from experience. My litigation clerk was in an apartment with some friends where a governor's lodge, and someone came in there and stole 40 televisions, and they packed every one of them. And I will tell you this, the Mabushi police station, the policemen there in Abuja, they tortured my litigation clerk. They tortured him, gave him marks. At some point, he was limping. And when I got to that station, I said, I am aware that my litigation clerk is here. I want to have access to him. They said, oh, madam, go and see the IPO. And I went to the IPO's office. Next thing I am told, oh, madam, are you here for... I said, yes, I'm here for him. And well, we have a remand order against him. You can go to court to file fundamental rights action. Can you imagine the audacity, the kind of the boldness in which a policeman is talking to a lawyer that, okay, you cannot do anything now, go to court. We know that before you get your case assigned, before you get your case heard, or even after the decision is made, we would have done what we want to do. That is terrible. That is impunity. Lawyers, we need to, it's not somebody coming to your meeting and talking, and we have no way to challenge them.
Yeah.
And this has happened before. This is history repeating itself. When they come to our meetings, they talk. Buhari came to our meeting in 2018, told us that national security will be taken as priority over the rule of law. That was in fact, that was the most annoying situation I've ever thought about. That nobody could stand up in that particular conference and say sorry, even in a state of emergency, the rule of law must prevail.
All right, Mujrai, hold on. I mean, we can see that you're really fired up, concerning these issues, and I totally understand. A lot of people, feel the same way. We just spoke, when we started the show about a person who, of course, was in prison for 10 months without, any actual case, awaiting trial. Of course, he eventually was rescued. But I want to talk about the PDOM case. Now, Peter Obi, of course, has referred to the recent actions by the APC government as leading Nigeria into a banana republic situation. PDOM, of course, is allegedly being charged, or reportedly being charged with leaking classified documents and cyber-related offenses. Do you think that these should be criminalized, or do you interpret this as their only way to silence a person who was doing, according to him, journalistic work? All right. I think we have, faulty connection there with Mujirayo Ogunlana.
Okay, so I've had the opportunity to see the kinds of revelations.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I said I have had the opportunity to read tweets that have come from that particular handle, and there have been quite some revelation. And there's something that I've always known, that is a very, very cogent defense to the issues of maybe defamation. When you come up with criminal defamation, for instance, or even in civil defamation, one thing that comes out as a proper defense is truth. There are others, but let's talk about truth. Now, what I am very, very what I'm very surprised about is that if you know that somebody is giving truth as information that are truthful, and they are information that Nigerians should have, why would you now claim that the person is trying to undermine the country? When you know that as public officers, you owe Nigerians the truth, number one, and then you owe them accountability and transparency. Now, transparency is already missing from government, and the only way we have been able to get it is through journalism and through the beautiful work of the media. Now, when you now arrest someone that has been known over a while for giving Nigerians the accurate information that helps us to hold government accountable, there is no two way of looking at it. It is just it's exactly what it looks like. It was targeted, and it is also a means to shut down that voice. And that is what it is. So there is no other way of describing it. And so when you public perception, and people like us, or people in the ordinary man on the streets, would be able to say, "Oh, government doesn't want to be accountable to us. They don't want to be transparent. So that is why they have done that." So that already causes disaffection. Now, to the international community, what you tell them is this: that you are undemocratic, that you are going into a
Still a quick struggle with the connection there, but of course the conversation is all about the recent arrest of a person handling the account of PDOM Nigeria in River State, Port Harcourt, and of course the reaction to that arrest by the Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi.
And there are many areas to look at in that conversation, where we're talking about his arrest and now him being charged to court, of course, because David Hunde, investigative journalist, shone the light on this situation. There are some arguments that you can't say you're charging him to court now because, first of all, the mode of his arrest was illegal. You cannot put something or nothing and expect it to stand. The reports about his arrest talked about these men in mufti picking him up, not dressed, there wasn't a warrant of any sort. They picked him up, they threw him into solitary confinement. They chained him for 6 days. The inhuman treatment that was meted out to him is not one that is in any way, shape, or form approved by our constitution. That level of torture is not approved, is not allowed. So the fact that, the latest report we're seeing by Fiji Nigeria is that he has an injury on his index finger that isn't healing, the way that he has been treated, first of all, brings up a lot of questions. Our respect for human rights, our respect for the law, the process of the law. It talks about as well the speed or the accuracy with which they were able to locate him, the technology that was employed to be able to locate him, and why that technology has not been employed to locate terrorists, to locate the hiding Yahaya Bello, and all the others. But bringing it back to PDOM Nigeria, is whistleblowing a crime? If somebody lets out information that quote unquote embarrasses you, the defense to defamation, if you feel like you're being defamed, the defense to defamation is truth. You have the choice to go to the court and show that what they're saying is not the truth. And if you can prove that what they have said is not the truth, then you have a case in law. Yeah. But if what they're saying is the truth, you do not have a case.
Again, it seems that security agencies in Nigeria believe that their role is in protection of the higher echelon individuals. They are not necessarily protect law and order.
Right.
And that's why when Fisayo Sheyombo, if you remember, went on his 2 or 3 week rundown on his revelations, investigative revelations on Nigeria Customs Service, there was no response. But of course, he instead was invited. Same thing with, of course, when Daniel Ojukwu was arrested. Mujiraya Ogulano, welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry about the connection there. But I mean, you could quickly go on. I want us to, also, speak about, I was just talking about Fisayo Sheyombo and the response that the Nigerian government had to his investigative revelations on the Nigerian Customs Service. We've had many of them like that. The idea the expectation when Nigerians see investigative journalistic work is to immediately tell the journalists to go and hide, instead of expecting a government, crackdown on the revelations that, of course, have been exposed. So, tell us a little bit about that, and why you think that is.
Okay, so I've been representing journalists for a while, and I can say from I was trying to say authoritarian before the network went off. So I want to link it to the kind of situation in the Togo, for instance, and the rule of Eyadame. The Togo has gotten to a point where the civic space is completely repressed. Now you see situations where Togo citizens, they find it hard to actually demonstrate. That one is existing. And Eyadame is more like an inheritance for him to be in government. Now let's now link it all the way to Yahya Jammeh of the Gambia before he was removed from office. Yahya Jammeh, he had a book, and I think that this particular government it seems that they are running with the same book, where journalists were killed, not killed, murdered, where journalists were removed from circulation. We saw a situation where journalists were going on exile. And one of the cases that I was able to, to participate in was the Federation of African Journalists against the government of the Gambia. And I have seen this happen in West Africa, and I see, unfortunately, that it is happening now in Nigeria. Because if a journalist has made cogent, revelations, what I would expect my government that has, sworn to protect my interests, what I will see is that the government will do more investigation in that aspect of the revelation, and then make sure that the people that are found wanting are, corrected, or, charge them to court or do something. Let it be seen. But when you have a system that allows someone like what's this man's name, Yahaya Bello, to be at large, but that same system is able to identify and hold behind bars a journalist, because the journalist doesn't have the kind of funds that someone can use in disappearing within the system. It shows that there is inequality. And it brings us back to George Orwell's Animal Farm, that some are more equal than the others. But apart from the fact that some are more equal than the others, we see a situation where government wants to do what they want to do, and they want everybody to keep quiet. But the last time, if we checked the definition of democracy, we know that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So it means that the power resides with the people. And so people like Fisayo Shiyombo, people like David Undeyin, people like Pidom also have the duty, because this is their profession, they have the duty to represent the people against the few that we elected into office, who should be accountable to us, who should be answerable to us.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's a pitiable situation, you know, and I've continued to mention that that's what it seems to be. Security agencies seem to be protecting those in office, you know, instead of protecting law and order in the country. But we're out of time. It's a sad situation. We'll, of course, continue to follow up with the Pidom case and see, you know, how it develops. Thank you very much for joining us, Mujirayo Ogunlano, and for your time this morning. We'll see you again. All right. Very interesting there. We, of course, you know, like we said, we'll follow up and see where it leads. Now, moving on, Ahmed Abubakar recently resigned from his position as a Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, NIA, after serving the former administration and current administration in the last 1 year.
However, activist and whistleblower Madi Shehu has a different account as to why the former NIA boss resigned. Shehu revealed that the resignation of Ahmed Abubakar is allegedly linked to a controversial 2017 sting operation. The operation, allegedly orchestrated by Northern Power Brokers, targeted the NIA's Lagos office, seizing $43 million and 34 million pounds.
Now, Shehu also claims the operation was designed to create a vacancy for Abubakar's appointment as DG, to replace former DG Ambassador Oke Ayodele. Now, President Tinubu has now replaced Abubakar with Mohammed as the new NIA boss, while Adeola Ajayi has been appointed to lead the secret police. Joining us is activist and whistleblower Madi Shehu. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. I mean, first of all, many people describe your claims as a conspiracy theory. As to who was meant to take over as the NIA boss. But of course, it didn't turn out that way. So tell us a little bit about that. Can you clarify why things didn't turn out the way that you had, you know, predicted?
You know, there are always calculations up to the last minute in government cycle. Any government, every government. Calculations will change based on the pressure group, based on the interest at stake, and based on the biggest power broker within the corridors of power. But Rifai did not resign. There are about 5 theories and narratives in public domain surrounding his alleged resignation. The one is that he sought to go and see Bola Tinubu on that fateful day, to tell him that he was traveling to China, even though he was given the permission, but just go and say farewell, that I'm traveling to China as approved by you. Lo and behold, he was allegedly confronted by Bola Tinubu in the presence of Nuhu Ribadu on the issue of seizure of the presidential appointment in France, which was an international issue within the domain of the NIA and within their own mandate to nip in the bud. Then the issue of raising a foreign Russian flag during the hunger protest and the calling for military takeover by the protesters. He was confronted and was informed by Bola Tinubu in the presence of Nuhu Ribadu that the seizure of the presidential plane, the raising of the Russian flag, and calling for military takeover should have been anticipated by the NIA, should have been contained by the NIA, should have been raised as an intelligence issue for wider consultation by the NIA, which they claim he failed woefully to do. And there and then he was requested to resign. That he came out and said that he came to tender resignation is just being a diplomat. You know, the definition of a diplomat in humor is that a diplomat is initially a gentleman who is appointed to go to another country and tell lies about that particular country. So he was being economical with truth. He never went with any resignation letter. He was accosted, he was ambushed, and he was made to resign instantaneously.
So just to be clear, you know, what you've described now sounds either that they might call it a palace coup, but you're saying that President Tinubu, along with Nuhu Ribadu, I beg your pardon, his NSA, decided to let go of the NIA boss. It's either of two things. It's either because they truly felt he was incompetent because of these things that have been mentioned.
And I'm coming to that.
Yeah, we'll get you to speak on that. You know, it's either they believe that he was incompetent as a result of these things that have been mentioned, the China issue, the Russian flags, and the others that you mentioned, either because of that or because they had a different person that they would rather, have there as NIA boss. So we're going to have you speak on that. We need to take a very short break. When we come back, I would like you to address that. Was it because they chose or they decided that they would rather have a different person there, who of course is Mohammed, or because they truly felt he was incompetent? So you respond to that after this very short break. Stay with us. We'll be back. Welcome back. Of course, we're still having conversations this morning on the recent resignation of the NIA and DSS bosses, and of course their replacement. We're joined this morning by Madi Shehu. Welcome back, sir. Just before we left, I wanted you to clarify if the replacement of the NIA boss was because the president and the NSA, Nuhu Ribadu, both believed that he was incompetent, or because they had a different plan, which is to replace him with Mohammed, but blame it on these things that you've mentioned?
But I think it's both. Because the seizure of the plane, the raising of the flag, calling for military takeover that could not be anticipated, smacks of incompetency. So if they charge him of being incompetent, they are right. But they could also hide behind that incompetency to bring in a waiting candidate. So it could be both. It could be that they had a candidate, a preferred candidate, a candidate within the corridors of power who is even alleged to be an in-law to somebody within the villa. So it could be that. It could be the utter incompetence displayed by Ahmed Rufai. But let me continue by telling you that also circumstances surrounding his appointment by Buhari in 2017 could be the ghost that is chasing him. The ghost of Ayodele, who was roped into an allegation and who was cleared from that allegation and who was supposed to be taken back to that seat. That ghost is chasing him. Also a director, Dauda, who was forcefully removed by Rufai upon appointment, has been fighting, and also the court says, take back Dauda back to his own position as a director. So these two combined ghosts might be chasing Ahmed Rufai up to the point of the last day of his appointment. The third theory is the relationship between Nuhu Ribadu and Ahmed Rufai. It is being reported that there is a complete disconnect, a complete love lost between Ahmed Rufai and Nuhu Ribadu, especially on the best approach to adopt in fighting banditry, kidnapping, and other high-profile crimes. While Rufai is not a member of the intelligence community, they have always seen him as an outsider because beside his ambassadorial experiences and the appointment by Buhari as SSA, he really is not an intelligence community person. He doesn't belong to the community of the intelligence community. Therefore, they see him always as a civilian with a civilian approach and attitude to security, while they are seeing themselves as professional security. Therefore, they are always at loggerheads. It is being alleged that they are always at loggerheads with Nuhu Ribadu. And Nuhu Ribadu, being the person supervising him, could not swallow the attitude of Rafai, and therefore might have reported the issues to the president and might have suggested to the president that do away with him. He is not contributing in any way. That could be another theory. The third theory is that he fell into the trap of politicians. You know, like the military. Military will always side their own, good or bad. Politicians will always side their own, good or bad. Bola Tinubu is a politician. Everybody is a politician. Ahmed Rafai is a bloody civilian. He doesn't know anything about politics. Therefore, if there is any disconnect, misunderstanding, in-house fighting between himself and Ribadu, whether Ribadu is right or not, Tinubu will take side with Ribadu. That is politicians for you. And of course, the final one, the theory, is that we from Katsina State feel it is Nemesis that came to play Orifai. Here is somebody who has been in the corridors of power. Within the security architecture, even if incompetent, he watched for the last 7 years. Katsina State was decimated to ground zero. 23 local governments are completely under bandits.
Right. It does seem that we're having a bit of challenge with the network for Mr. Madi Shehu. We hope that we can have that sorted. The NIA boss has resigned, like we've been talking about, citing personal family reasons. After briefing the president, he was very grateful that the president had approved his reasons to resign and had accepted his resignation. However, whistleblower Madi Shehu has a different opinion as to what exactly happened. Okay, welcome back. Can you hear us now? Great.
Yeah, I can.
All right. I just wanted us to touch on, what your expectations are. You've cited a number of reasons, a number of conspiracy theories as to what exactly might have been the real reason for the resignation. Seen resignations and new appointments. Do you have faith, regardless of what was the reason for the resignation? There have been some new appointments that have been made in this regard. Do you have any faith as to what that might mean for Nigeria going forward? Does it look like anything positive?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't have faith in a government that is consistently, persistently, unapologetically insensitive to the yearnings and aspirations and the pains and the trauma of its own citizens. Under Tinubu, what we are seeing is increasing pains by the day, by the week, by the month, all year through. Increasing insecurity, increasing hunger, penury, and starvation. A government that is midwifing all these negatives cannot be relied upon. Therefore, they can appoint anybody they want. They can deploy anybody they want. They can do whatever they want. But the issue is the cat is already out of the bag. We have seen the incompetencies in this government. We have seen the insensitivities in this government. We have seen the naivety. We have seen the assumption. And we have seen the lack of pity and compassion in them. A government lacking pity and compassion cannot be a government that you can rely upon. Therefore, confidence, I don't have. Trust, I don't have. Composure, I don't have. Expectations, I don't have. What we seem to be going through in Nigeria today is with the advent of Tinubu, everybody is on his own. Everybody is for himself. God for us all. Survival of the fittest. And the devil take the hindermost.
All right, let's take the conversation another direction. And this time around, let's talk about the arrests of whistleblower PDOM Nigeria, the handle behind PDOM Nigeria on X. There have been several conversations, investigations that have surrounded not only his arrest, his unlawful detention and the way in which he has been tortured. And I'm sure that you're privy to such information. Can you maybe share with us your thoughts on that? And if you worry about yourself as well, and if that might be your fate?
A further confirmation that Nigerians are under siege. In a normal society, if you accuse somebody of anything, charge him to court. There are enough laws in the land to punish him if he has committed any offense. Now, arresting him, harassing him, detaining him, and torturing him is simply an indicator that we are dealing with a failed government. Only a government not sure of itself will resort to this arm twisting of journalists. Only a government that has a skeleton in its own cupboard will untwist a journalist. Only a government that has nothing to tell the public will untwist the journalist. But then, I have a bad news for them. The more they twist journalists, the more they harass journalists, the more they kill journalists, the more they intimidate journalists, the more they are painting themselves in the darkest color, in maroon color, in dark color, and in all uncomplimentary colors in the eyes of the Nigerian society, in the eyes of the regional society, in the eyes of the larger society. And if they could go through down memory lane, they will realize that it is an indication that their end is coming. Because the moment you resort to all this harakiri, to all this violent arrest, to all this torture, it means you are totally disconnected from the reality on ground. You are not even aware of how nosedived your popularity is. A popularity that you were never in any place, you were never popular, but your popularity rating has nosedived to below ground zero.
Right. I want us to quickly touch on the second part of the question that I have asked you. We're still talking about speedom, but you are also a whistleblower. Do you fear for yourself and for your safety?
I don't fear anybody anymore. I have been arrested several times. I have received all forms of insults. I don't fear anybody. There is only one life. If I lose it, it is meant to be lost one way or the other. The person who would be responsible for me losing my life also has one. He will one day also leave this world. We will all appear before God for judgment. And on that day, it's not going to be about dollar or naira or aeroplane or yacht or estate in Abuja or oil. No, it's going to be about what you have as a relationship between you and fellow human beings while you were alive. It's more about a relationship between fellow human beings than even a relationship between you and your God.
Brilliant. I also want you to speak a little bit on the issues between the Shiites and the police in the Federal Capital Territory. Every time that they go on their religious walks, unfortunately, there's always some clash or the other. It's happened so many times. Of course, another one happened a couple of days ago, led to the reported killing of 2 police officers and, injuries to others. So quickly share your thoughts on how the Tinubu administration, Bola Tinubu administration, must handle the issues concerning the Shiites.
The only way to handle is to realize that people have legitimate constitutional right to protest. And these protesters were unarmed. You recall that during Nasser El-Rufai's tenure in Kaduna State, same Shiites who were doing the same procession, thousands of them were killed. They were unarmed. If you are talking of killing 2 policemen now, nobody is talking about killing of the Shiites way back during Nasser El-Rufai's that were killed in thousands and were buried in mass graves. The rights of the citizens the rights are more important than anything. If you refuse them right, they will try to get that right by all means. If you force people out of the cycle of their own right, they will fall back on you. The issue of Shiites is not about killing them. It's about negotiating with them or about giving them their own rights. People are protesting all over the country, all over the world. Protest is legitimate. Protest is legal. But to prevent people from protesting, you are giving them no option but the option of violence.
How things turn out, I've also pretty much said the same thing, that there has to be a different approach towards handling the issues, with the Shiites. What can you tell us about the new appointments, Mohammed at the NIA, and of course, the new appointment at the DSS as well?
Hello, are you with me?
Yes, I'm asking, what can you tell us about, the new appointments, Mr. Adeola Ajayi at the DSS and Mohammed at the NIA?
Luckily, you call them new appointments. They are new faces. We are waiting to see their own approaches, their own style, whether they are going to be anti-people and pro-government, or whether they are going to be on the face of justice, equity, fairness, and professionalism. If they happen to be professional people and conduct themselves professionally, good for Nigeria. But if they are going to continue from where Rufai stopped and from where the former DSS stopped, it means it's no news. It is just an old wine in a new bottle.
All right. I think my final question would be for us to touch quickly on the case of Yahaya Bello and him not being found. He's been invited to court a number of times. He's avoided all court appearances. In our last conversation with the EFCC, we learned that they do not know where Yahaya Bello is and that he's in hiding. And some have found it very interesting that they were able to, for example, find out a spot out whistleblower PDOM Nigeria quite easily, but are unable to find out where Yahaya Bello is. So what are your thoughts on that case?
Not only that, they are almost every week they are parading young men who are accused of internet fraud. Almost every week they parade them in their 10s, in their 20s, in their 30s. Yet they are unable to identify Yahaya Bello because Yahaya Bello has a mother that is cooking and he is sitting right before that pot. Therefore, he will eat earlier than anybody. If they wanted Yahaya Bello, long ago Yahaya Bello will have been there on net. But the fear is that Yahaya Bello is dancing to a drum. Chinua Achebe said in Arrow of God, if you see an old woman dancing in the middle of the bush, and you neither hear the sound of the drum, nor do you see her drummer. If you don't see the drummer, you don't hear the sound. The old woman knows the drummer. She knows the rhythm of the drummer. She is dancing to a very familiar rhythm. The FCC are pretending. They are shying away from the responsibility because they fear that if Yahaya Bello is arrested by them, somebody, somewhere, somehow will give them instruction to release him. And that will be the end of their mandate as FCC. More so, I'm waiting for the chairman to resign. 3 months ago, he said, if Yahaya Bello escapes justice, he will resign. Please, Chairman EFCC, kindly resign. You are a man of God. If you speak, we expect you to keep to your own promises. You promised to resign. Kindly resign because Yahaya Bello has escaped justice for now and for a long time to come. Don't be surprised he will come back to replace Ganduje as the chairman of APC. Don't be surprised. Anything is possible under Nigeria. Anything is possible under APC, and anything is possible with politicians.
Look forward to having you again. And we know that, unfortunately, we're not going to have you again with pleasant stories because that's what the reality has become. But thank you for your time with us. All right. Let's bring a recap of the conversations we've had so far and then share with you what's coming up next. This morning on Breakfast Central, President Tinubu appoints new NIA and DSS boss. We've had a conversation with Mahdi Shehu. Police arrest PDOM for leaking classified documents, they say. Resident doctors strike over abduction of colleague, and they are going to be striking for the next 1 week. Well, let's share with you what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Federal government sets 18 years limit for JAM, WAEC and NECO exams. And of course, we'll bring you the newspaper front pages, share with you the major stories making headlines across Nigeria today. Also, which way Nigeria? Big questions we're asking this morning.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's take you through the newspapers this morning and see what the headlines on the front pages are saying. We're joined by Razak Olokoba, your favorite newspaper analyst. Good morning.
Thank you very
much
for
joining
having me.
Just so I'm clear, every time a new person comes, they are our favorite analysts. So
Yes.
let's head straight to the papers this morning. Our first paper to be reviewed this morning is this Nigerian newspaper. End alarming killings, kidnapping and banditry. Nigeria Interreligious Council tells federal government urges security agencies to change strategy. Tinubu, Chinese president to meet in Beijing. Brain drain reduces national hospital staff to 2,500 according to the CMD. Local airfares surged by 25% in July, says NBS. Floods killed 49, displaced 41,344 in Northeast, according to NEMA. Zaria residents seek help after cemetery desecration over deluge. Wow. IMF hinges Nigeria's 3.1% economic growth outlook on stronger reforms. That's all on this Nigeria. Let's look at the next paper.
All right. Moving from this Nigeria, let's go to the what's now Vanguard newspapers. It says here, agony in Southeast as kidnappers lay siege to communities. It seems like there is now a kidnapper economy in Nigeria. It has become many, many times worse than it was months ago. And what I've repeatedly said is that if we don't have a different approach, then almost nothing will change. And I don't know that we have had a different approach. Anyway, still on the Vanguard, end bad governance, federal government gets 17-point ultimatum. Insecurity can end the bloodshed, can and Sultan urge federal government. Flood in death, toll rises to 117, 2,000 injured, displaced 205,000. These are the major stories on the Vanguard newspapers this morning. Let's go to Daily Independent.
Daily Independent, big story. Nigeria moves to avoid international economic penalties and restrictive measures. Vows to exit terrorist financing countries list by May 2025. Says country has 9 months left to exit grey list deadline. Tinubu to visit China over rail project, other MOU deals. 2 years after commissioning, Ekiti 20 billion naira airport yet to take off. Sorry for the laugh. Stakeholders worry over 90% airports are not self-sustaining, say they are constructed only for political reasons. You can't dissolve Benue local government area exco's Ganduje-led NWC Wants Committee. Mpox, Lagos on high alert against importation of aggressive variant. EFCC chairman urges National Assembly to pass whistleblower protection law. Very important. Nigerian military will continue to defend democracy, says CDS. Ex-APC National Auditor Mogalu quits party. IGP harps on citizen participation in national security, seeks collaboration from stakeholders. Labour rejects Governor Oti's lone move to convene NEC, and final story. NAFDAC denies report advising Nigerians to avoid bread. Let's start with Nigeria vowing to exit terrorist financing countries list by May 2025. Do you agree with this? Do you see the possibility of this happening?
Well, ISWAP and Boko Haram is the third and the fifth most deadliest group in the world. And that is bad for the country. You see, there are challenges of security all over the world, but most of the challenges that is bedeviling the rest of the world, like flood, brain drain, insecurity, in Nigeria is our own creation. Yes, insecurity, we are supposed to put it behind us a long time ago, but we are not looking in the right direction. When the IG put in place a crack team of honor, that's what the problem is. But what would 169 to protect the life of honor? It's not sufficient. So the government and Nigerians are not appear. We don't appear serious about putting security behind us. I am one of the co-founders of Harassment. When we finished all the things with our own personal resources, with our renewal group, nation group, most of the governors didn't accept it. They just turned it down. So up until later, now they realize that it is important to embrace a new layer of security. And that's why you see all of them now taking Amatekun serious now. Until we have a new layer of security in Nigeria, we cannot secure Nigeria with the present numbers of police we have, which is the federal police. Yeah. And no, but we should start taking the governors. So we have to hold them responsible for insecurity in that state now. Yeah,
you have a point there. I think that one thing to also shed light on is the fact that it has progressively gotten worse. Initially, I mean, in the late, maybe 2009, 2010, 2011.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Conversation then.
I agree with you.
Has now snowballed into many other things.
And if care is not taken, they are gradually becoming a legitimate institution. In the north now, what is going on is a low-scale war, to such an extent that if you want to do something, the way you take permission from police, civil defense, and army, is the way you go and take permission from them now to do anything. An event, a rally or anything, you don't have to take permission from them, either through their proxy. I don't know how they do it in the north. When I passed through Kaduna, I was going to Beningwari, where I'm supposed to sink a borehole for them. What I met on the road is as if we have considered that part of Nigeria to bandit and terrorists. We see police checkpoint, we see army checkpoint, and the citizens that were taking me through that place were saying that, please, know what you are going to do, know what you are going to be. I say, are we going? So we met some guys on the road, and in my suspicion, I know they are terrorists. And that's going to be the picture in the Southeast very soon. That's going to be the picture in the South very soon, if you don't do anything about it. You see, in security, what we have read about it, as someone who offers security services to people, a licensed security expert, it begins to embolden them. It begins to embolden them.
So what can we do about it? You say that this will be the picture in the Southeast very soon if we don't do something about it.
If we don't,
what is something that we need to do
governors,
about it?
there is no law that says that a governor cannot procure a low-scale arm for his own people, 1,000 of his own people in the state. There's no law that bars any governor from doing that.
So we should start seeing more of the Amotekun, Zebobagu,
and the name, yes. You can't be waiting for president to do all of it. But because the governors don't want to take responsibility, they are the one that prevented Jonathan from having it. We had long conversation with Jonathan. It was the governor that said, well, how do we pay them? It was the governors during Buhari's time. And now they are also the one that's trying to prevent Tinubu from doing it again. And for us, we are going to hold the president responsible. If after his 4 or 8 years, the case may be, he didn't give us state police, we are going to hold him responsible and the governors. So the killings, we have to put it behind us. The president needs to be assertive. The state must pick up that offer. There must be state police. If you don't have a new layer of state police, in fact, there must be transport police in Nigeria. There must be forest police in Nigeria. It shouldn't be the federal police that should be saying to everything, I owe you money, I didn't pay you. You go and call federal police. That's an insult to our police. So someone is fighting under the bridge in Ojuelegba. You go and call federal police. Well, these are local issues that. So it's a national asset that we are mismanaging. So the army has a completely different role. When army is activated, it's going there to kill. It's not designed to go and doing public relations with the Nigerians or the people. So the army, the police, we are not using them very well. We are mismanaging. So the call now for insecurity to end in Nigeria, we must be clear about how to end it. We can't be doing rhetorics with the government too. So that's why if anybody say bad governance, end the insecurity in Nigeria, we have to be able to explain to the federal government that there's nothing new you want to do with this structure, with this current security institution. There must be a new layer of security architecture in Nigeria. There must be a new layer. If there's no new layer of security in Nigeria, we are just like your intro. We are going to continue like this.
All right.
There will be no change at all.
So here is what bothers me, right? We didn't have this situation in between 1999 and 2007.
It's escalating.
It's gotten worse.
And it's keep escalating.
One of the reasons that it might be getting worse is because I don't think it's simply because, well, the system is just not working. There's people who insinuate that it's because there is internal factors. There's people who are colluding with these people.
You go back to that issue. When you are prevented from committing crime, of course, we know the economy is one of the major issues. Any kind of economic crisis, there will be a corresponding moral issue. We know that one. There will be this kind of challenges. Just like we read a report of how 15 got one get killed. So economy also contribute to it, which is also one of the major reasons for insecurity all over the world. We know that one for sure. But you will go back to the main issue when you can't commit crime again. You then go back, why am I hungry? You go back to it.
So we obviously
now go back to asking the governors, what are you spending our money on? You go back to asking the president, what are you doing about the economy?
So I just want to ask, right? So are you saying that no matter how seriously the current administration chooses to take the security challenge, which is reducing the proliferation of arms across the country, in ensuring that we tighten up our borders so that we don't have arms regularly flowing into the country, arresting those who have colluded, and I'm talking about those who allegedly within Nigerian security agencies are colluding with these bandits and these kidnappers, tightening up its ranks in every single way, tracing funds, wherever they are, they might be going to bandits and all of that, and ensuring that everybody who is responsible is arrested and sent to prison. Are you saying that no matter what the current administration does, we would not be able to actually solve the security challenges?
The first thing is what I've told you. For instance, there are boundaries between states across the country. People share international boundaries. If each state succeeds in securing its boundary, there will be no influx of arms into your state from another state. What we designed that time is a network between Oyo, Ogun, Ekiti, and Lagos State, in such a way that even if someone kidnaps in Ogun is going to Oyo, there will be a network between the two commandants of each state to network. Then all the people on the road, people who are yam seller, we created a database for them to do that. So that the first thing is to do the needful. Now, the whole question of arms proliferation, that's a foreign affairs matter, which I think the president should take serious. There's no part of Africa where guns are produced. Why is it that it's only in Africa that we have a number of careless arms getting into wrong
Here's
guns?
my point.
So that's one. Then two, the economy, like you have said, is also important. The recruitment center for criminals is where there's no job. And that's why the northern leaders should be serious about this matter. Don't heap it on anybody in the current administration. They are responsible for their calamity. Remember in the 80s when Yandabas will start killing non-indigenous, and they feel comfortable about it. And we warn that the chicken is coming home to roost one day. Or if you go to the, I know you know what is happening in the north. You think all those boys will grow up and become, if they can't kill indigenous again, they will go to another state. No, they become a menace, which they have become today. So the north should be held responsible for the insecurity in the north. The emirs, the religious leaders, all of them should be held responsible because there's an available recruitment center for Iswap, for Boko Haram, because Boko Haram offer juicy offer. You kidnap and get a lot of money. So for someone who's working for 100 naira, he would risk his life to do that. So it's not, apart from the fact that the religious factor, which is misunderstood, upside down. The major issue is that, am I not a Muslim? Don't we have Muslims in the Southwest? Right. Why can't we have issues of Boko Haram? So it is the army of unemployed youth in the north that contributed to it, kidnapping. And it's creeping into other states. Everybody will be able to tame his own excesses. If there's a state police in Enugu, you will fend them off. Right. I'm 2,000 youths in Enugu to secure Enugu state. The governor can't do that. You keep running to President Obasanjo, you keep running to Jonathan, you keep running to Buhari, now Tinubu. Governor should secure their state. If there are no agencies in Lagos State, 25 million people in a small parcel of land, you know what we have gone through if there's no last man. So when Lagos was doing his own thing, you furthered your own and you didn't prioritize security in your own state. And you think it's going to be a free day for you. So the picture will never change. The currency, see,
all right.
Loose fund all over the world, they are looking for where to dump it to commit a crime. Nigeria is a vital ground for that.
As quickly as possible, I want us to move on. So, yes, all the big stories and all the papers are talking about insecurity, and that's one of the biggest challenges that we're facing as a nation. But the Daily Independent has another story. EFCC chairman urges National Assembly to pass whistleblower protection law. The most recent reason for that is we did see the most recent case is the arrest of PDOM, the handle that has revealed a number of government secrets, some would say embarrassed the government. Whistleblowing has never been known to be a crime, especially when what you're saying can be proved to be the truth. The defense of defamation is, truth. And if the government does have a case, they should take it to court. So I'm sure you followed the PDOM Nigeria story. Yeah. I want your thoughts on that as quickly as possible and the possibility of whistleblower protection.
There should be an end-to-end legislation, just like the raping issue. If you claim to be raped, and you find out it is a lie, there should be legislation for penalty.
No, there is.
No, I'm saying that if there's no rape, it's also whistleblowing, it should be end-to-end. That's our position, that if you blow a whistle, you should be protected. And if you deliberately blow a whistle to traumatize somebody, there should be a penalty for that. But we should give protection, and we should encourage everybody that wants to get hold of our fund in this country. We have to protect the person. And I don't think it is the National Assembly will be willing to do that, except Nigerians mobilize it. And EFCC chairman needs to do more if he wants that law to be passed. It's not going to them to appeal to them. It needs a very huge advocacy because they may not likely pass it. They may be fair. They may be. I'm not accusing them that they are corrupt, they had unwanted or stolen money in their houses. But any bill that will advance the cause of Nigeria, They're always reluctant to
When they say that it's Nigerian president, that all of this, I mean, there was an article I saw about the number of journalists that have been arrested since President Bola Tinubu came into office, and the number of journalists that have been intimidated, and a number of journalists who share that they fear for their lives and their freedom at this point. Would you say that the Bola Tinubu administration has not been one that has been fair to journalists, that has not played by the books when it comes to conversations about rule of law and democracy as it should be?
I read about 2 incidents, the one that has to do with the chief of staff and one other one again. See, in your profession, you have your bigger body, which is the NUJ.
Yeah.
Why did they refuse to take the matter to the NUJ? Why is the UJ not picking up the matter? And that's where we should go to, that if a journalist is wrongly penalized for doing his duty, that's advice I say, that's doing his duty. Why will you go back home and start knocking your own? No.
He's not home well. He's within the detention of law enforcement.
No, after being released, you now go back home and fold your arm.
It's if he will be released, and when he'll be released, that's another conversation that we had. But unfortunately, we don't have time for
Many have been released and they go back home. You have to fight it out.
All right. Mr. Lokoba would have to go on the break now. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We're on a quick break. When we come back, we have more conversations this morning. Stay with us.
My piece this morning is directed at Nigerians to celebrate the millions and millions of Nigerians, young and old, and of different tribes, who have chosen to be the actual opposition in a nation that currently seems to have one political party. Politicians all coming together with different party names, but seemingly still under the same canopy. It is a very popular opinion that Nigeria currently doesn't have an opposition party, not in the PDP or in the Labour Party or any other political party. The seeming only idea of opposition is currently the millions of Nigerians who, since the emergence of the Labour Party candidate, Peter Obi, have created a nameless opposition party built on the conscience of millions of well-meaning Nigerians. They currently seem to be the only ones constantly challenging Nigeria's current government and doing their best to keep the government on its toes. The PDP, which continues to label itself Nigeria's main opposition party, from all indications, is mostly in dreamland. It seems to be hoping that Nigerians truly get so fed up with the APC's policies and immense suffering that they then simply have no other choice than to pick the lesser evil, the PDP. That seems to be the approach of that party. But quite obviously, that approach has not worked, both in 2019 and 2023. The concept of just choosing the lesser evil has not been appealing enough to Nigerians. If you ask around, many people will tell you that they don't really rate these other parties as true opposition parties or even better options. And simply being the lesser evil is not comforting enough for the Nigerian voter. The same PDP that claims to be a leading opposition party with more than 100 members in the House of Reps has not one time been able to carry itself to strongly oppose any of the policies of the current government or set themselves apart from the seeming wastage of taxpayers' money. They have had multiple opportunities to show Nigerians that they are different. Same thing with the Labour Party. Multiple opportunities to show Nigerians that they are different, and they've all failed. They seem to all be in the same party with the APC. And when you ask, of course, the PDP members, when you ask them, they keep referring to the past PDP governments from 1999. Since they lost the election in 2014, these people have still not been able to present themselves or their party as an actual better option. The national chairman of the PDP is daily being accused of having strong loyalty to the person who led the coup against the party's candidate in 2023. And again, when you ask PDP members, they have all sorts of excuses to give for not being able to sanction that same person and show that they truly mean business. That is either the most glaring form of cowardice or a clear sign of money politics coming back to bite. The Labour Party, of course, on the other hand, has its chairman moving from one court battle to the other. Now, today's monologue may seem mostly focused on the PDP because they truly are, if we're being honest, the opposition party with the widest spread across Nigeria today. The Labour Party under its current leadership seems to have failed to set itself up beyond the 2023 elections. In fact, some would say that it wouldn't even be in any conversation if Peter Obi didn't join them before the 2023 elections. There is as well a deafening silence from both their party chairman, Julius Abure, and all of them in the National Assembly. But this morning, I'll end by saying once again to the PDP and others, Nigerians would not simply choose you because you exist, and they need a lesser evil. You must show yourself worthy of every Nigerian vote. And continue to refer to the PDP era that was paused in 2014 as proof that you are better isn't convincing enough. 10 years have passed since 2014, enough time for you to actually be the opposition Nigerians seek and show yourself worthy of any conversation that Nigerians are having. Good morning, Nigerians.
The federal government's directive to peg the age of West African Examination Council WAEC and National Examination Council NECO candidates at 18 years has sparked concerns among stakeholders. The National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools, NAPS, and the Nigerian Union of Teachers, NUT, have expressed concerns that the policy may lead to delaying and denying some students access to higher education. However, the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has backed the policy, stating that children should follow the standard academic progression and not be rushed into university.
The policy aims to ensure that students are emotionally mature and prepared for university. But critics argue that it may not be realistic and could lead to legal challenges. Joining us is an education development expert and the CEO of Team Masters Limited, Rotimi Eitayo. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Eitayo, can you hear us? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes, we can. We seem to have a struggle with the connection, but we'll see how it works. Quickly share with us, your views on this new directive, and of course, the age of maturity of a child, before they are, legal enough to get into university or to write, the WAEC exams.
All right, thank you very much. My perspective is that I think that this policy coming at this point in time might not be an effective one due to different situations. As we all know that we have a lot of numbers and statistics to actually play with, thinking about what happens in between you having students who are out of school in terms of post-secondary education, and then the population that sits for the senior school certificate exam, and also the population that writes JAM. We're talking about millions of students, and pretty much I think that the gap in between writing WAEC and waiting for probably the next 2 years, over the average age of 16 years before they become 18 to be able to get into university, is something we need to look at again. The society in itself might not be too mature enough to be able to have that wait time. And so these are many factors that I think that execution of this policy might need a little bit a rethink, maybe staggered in itself, and then begin to implement step by step, or give a notification for a minimum of maybe 2-3 years to regularize and get people prepared. That's what I think.
But is it even a necessary policy? Yes, we know that part of the explanation is that it's not a new policy, it's the implementation that they want to kickstart now. What is the rationale behind this policy? Is there really an age to determine maturity, especially in a country where we say that students cannot get into university until they're 18, but can get married as young as 13 and 14?
Yes, that's a very good point you've made. Maturity is very relative and also subjective, especially with the world we are living in now, where we are having the age of achievement keeps shrinking by the day. I think that if a child is able to have what we call self-awareness, a child is able to have ability to pursue academic excellence, a child is able to take care of himself, that in itself has some indices towards maturity. The question would now be that if we're going to really make education global and the practice of education, we need to understand that maybe the model of education, especially in Nigeria, my person, there are children who are actually 15 and 16, and they have capacity of productivity, they have capacity of maturity, even than those who are 22. And they have the skills that they are able to even kickstart several things. I think we need to watch the way we label things and create stereotypes out of policies, because at the end of the day, the goal is not to just have policies, to make sure that these policies are quite functional and enabling for the children, for the society, and the economy at large.
Yeah. I mean, also, you know, I've seen the response of the Nigerian Union of Teachers. You know, their concerns, of course, you know, are that the government is focusing on the minor things, you know, and ignoring things like education infrastructure and many other things, and welfare of teachers, which should be its priority, not the age with which students get into school. Do you agree with that? And do you think that we have, you know, I mean, I said this, you know, maybe a day or so ago, that the reasons behind some of these regulations aren't necessarily data-driven. It's not like we've seen, you know, data to show that there is a national crisis with underage students getting into universities and that must stop because, you know, of one issue or the other. There's no data to show any of that. It's really just, you know, a reason based on, okay, these are the best practices, so let's stick with it. So the NUT's reason about the government focusing on the minor things, do you agree with that? And, you know, would you like that we have better explanations for these things before we make them, you know, regulations?
Yes, I agree with NUT. I stand by that. There are many more things for us to look into. If you remember, like you said, data. For example, over 1.9 million people sat for JAM, and the university system probably cannot even admit up to half of that number. You know, so I think that there are priorities that we need to get right. You know. And we begin to look at it from the angle of, is it just sentimental reasons? We've heard people say that, well, children get into university and because of using of substance, some of them get manipulated and all those things. These are the reasons. But if you think about it, I think that by the time we begin to see the fallout of these policies, then we'll realize that we're taking the wrong steps. We're already having issues where there's a huge exodus, where people are pursuing academic pursuits outside Nigeria, within West African region. People are going to Togo, people are going to Ghana. And I think that we'll see a surge because those people are not going to put a peg, and nobody would wait for 2 years if their children are 16 to turn 18 and just stay at home, because there's really nothing to do. We're not running a 24-hour economy. And these are factors that might be limiting people. So I think that I stand with NUT.
I completely agree with you. We'll start to see a mass exodus of young people who would go abroad to study. And when they study, you can't ask them to come back. There's going to be an increase in brain drain. Parents are going to keep looking for FX to pay for school fees in dollars, and it's going to keep getting worse if nothing is done about it. So with the pushback that we're seeing with, you know, from the National Union of Teachers, from parents, do you think that the Minister of Education would listen to this and maybe take a different turn? And if they don't take a different turn, what do you think it says about this administration?
Well, the numbers don't lie. By the time we begin to see it, it's just that their response might be too late. The degree of responsiveness for government and government institution really needs to be addressed at this time around. And if they don't, we will see our government not being inclusive, not being fast or fact-driven, as the case may be. So I think the buck stops on the minister's table to rethink this before we get into a place and position where we might not really like. Because what will happen is we'll have a lot of value erosion because people start falsifying things. Right. You start seeing affidavits of different kinds. You know, these are things that will happen.
Rotimi Eitayo, CEO of Team Masters Limited, thank you very much for your time with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to our audience, to as many who have called. Thank you to our guests who have joined us virtually and here in the studio. We'll be back again same time tomorrow, but from all of us here, good morning and enjoy the rest of the show. I am Olive Modi and I'll see you tomorrow.
And I am Usaogi Ogbonwa. Bye for now.